It's that time again. Oh, yes, it's that time again for the Ringo Klecko Sports Report. Yes, it's that time again. Oh, yes, it's that time again for the Ringo Klecko Sports Report. Take that, Chuck Berry. Hi out there, everybody. And hello to all of you Ringo Klecko Sports Reports fans. My name is Timothy Connolly, and today we are joined by none other than Ringo Klecko.
Hello, everybody. Ringo Klecko, 35,000 feet, flying into Miami on beach on BOAC. I got the paper bag on my knee. Really excited to be coming over the pond over to the 48 lower states.
Very nice, Ringo Klecko. I hope you don't have a dreadful flight because we need you in ship shape for episode 4 here of the Ringo Klecko Sports Report. Now, today we've got some big news to start off with in the NFL. There's a big sale happening. Yes, that's right. The Washington Commanders are on sale. In fact, Daniel Snyder is selling the team, and there is an article that went up at the sportingnews.com all about this, and it lets us know what we need to know about the new owner of the Washington Commanders. His name is Josh Harris. Now, Ringo Klecko, I'm sure, knows all about Josh Harris, but for all of those Ringo Klecko Sports Reports fans out there in the world, let's get on into what the sportingnews.com is reporting. It says here, Daniel Snyder has owned the Washington Commanders for 23 years, but his time in the NFL is coming to an end. The team announced May 12th that Snyder has finalized an agreement to sell the franchise to an investment group led by Josh Harris, who also owns the NBA's Philadelphia 76ers and the NHL's New Jersey Devils. Billionaire Mitchell Rales and NBA legend Magic Johnson are also part of the ownership team that is buying the Washington Commanders. Now, it also says here that Washington fans have long been calling for Daniel Snyder to sell this team. Their pressure, along with a steady decline in attendance at FedEx Field, where the Washington Commanders play their home games, has played a role as well. Now, before we go any further into this story, as per the the sportingnews.com there, Ringo Klecko, I have to ask you, what do you think about Dan Snyder selling this team?
Well, I must say that my understanding is that Mr. Snyder, he's not a very a large man. He's about, I think, about 4'10". And as you know, that one of our mates up from
Hamburg?
help me out here, not Hamburg, the
Liverpool.
Eric Burden, the singer from the Animals. I was sort of thinking of the Newcastle. Yeah, they're made up from Newcastle.
Oh,
The
that's right.
Animals. Eric Burden. He's about 4'10" also, and as you know, his name was Tuna. His nickname was Tuna, and I understand that the big rival coach of the Washington team was Bill Tuna Parcells. So I can understand why Daniel Snyder, being such a an Animals fan, why he felt that this was the right time to sell the team to Mr. Harris. I'm sure that Mr. Harris must know the other Mr. Harris from Iron Maiden, so he's probably going to be an improvement over Daniel Snyder.
Makes sense. In fact, makes perfect sense. You might even say it makes dollars and cents. Speaking of dollars and cents, let's talk about Josh Harris. This is the guy who's going to be buying the Washington Commanders. Now, who is he? Well, he's a 58-year-old businessman and an investor. He co-founded Apollo Global Management, which is a private equity firm that happened to have 400, I'm sorry, not 400, $548 billion in assets under management at the end of 2022. Geez, got enough money there, Josh Harris? He also has ties to the sports world, and he is the co-founder of Harris Blitzer Sports and Entertainment. Now, let's see here. Now he finally gets his big chance to be part owner of sports teams in 3 of the 4 biggest American sports. I wonder if that's a first. I have never heard of anything quite like that before happening, but anyway, that's the big news. So Josh Harris is going to be leading the group pending approval by the NFL. Now, they still have to approve the sale, of course, but it does look like it's going to happen. And with the sale of the Washington Commanders, one also begins to wonder, are they going to undergo another name change? Perhaps the name of the Washington Football Club, well, I should call them that, is part of the reason for the decline in ticket sales and for attendance at FedEx Field? I don't know. Maybe it's not. Maybe it is. Maybe it's not. Maybe it is. Who can say? But that's the big news coming out of the NFL with that sale. So keep a close eye on that sports story. We shall see if the NFL approves the sale. Now then, moving on to our next segment here on the Ringo Klecko Sports Report, it's time to talk about the Major League Baseball. What's going on this weekend in the Major League Baseball? Well, there's going to be some games played across the Atlantic Ocean in London, England. Yes, that's right. And NBA, I'm sorry, not NBA. Talk about the NBA a bit later. MLBTradeRumors.com is reporting that as the 2023 regular season continues, here are three things that we'll be keeping an eye on around the baseball world throughout the day today, meaning today, June 23rd, 2023. Number one, the 2023 London series begins. The Cubs and Cardinals have arrived in London for a two-game set over the weekend. It will be just the second Major League Baseball series ever played in London after the Red Sox and the Yankees faced off 4 years ago. That would have been 2019, for those of you keeping score at home. Now, this 2023 campaign has been a struggle for both the St. Louis Cardinals and the Chicago Cubs so far. Both clubs are under 500. Although the Cubs have won 10 of their last 12 games, which is kind of nice, and it's lifted their record back up to 36 and 38, meaning they're only 3.5 games back in a somewhat weak National League Central Division. Now, that streak has come on the back of a fantastic starting rotation that includes Marcus Stroman, Justin Steele, Drew Smyly, and a resurgent Kyle Hendricks. The St. Louis Cardinals, however, have not found any such footing, with the preseason division favorites toiling in last place with a 31 and 34 record despite a talented roster centered around Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt. Game one of the London series will take place at 12:10 p.m. Central Time tomorrow, meaning Saturday, June 24th. Game two takes place on Sunday, which will be June 25th, and that will be at 9:10 a.m. Central Time. It's also important to note that regarding Kenta Maeda, there's been a lot of speculation about when he was going to return to pitch for the Minnesota Twins. It looks like he's missed the past 2 months now with a tricep strain. Ouch. He started tonight's game against the Detroit Tigers, and Kenta Maeda joined the Twins prior to the 2020 season in a deal that sent Brusdar Graterol to the Dodgers and immediately delivered for the Twins with a 2.70 ERA and 11 starts during the shortened season. That performance propelled Kenta Maeda to a second-place finish in American League Cy Young Award voting behind Shane Bieber, but the now 35-year-old right-hander hasn't pitched up to that standard since. After 21 starts, during which he delivered a 4.66 ERA, Maeda underwent Tommy John surgery in September of 2021. He returned at the beginning of the current campaign, but he made just 4 starts with an ERA of 9.00 over 16 innings. Phew, before returning to the injured list. Now, if Kenta Maeda is back to full health, he nonetheless figures to be an asset for a Twins rotation that currently also features Sonny Gray, Pablo Lopez, Joe Ryan, and Bailey Ober. Ringo Klecko, I got to ask you, what do you think about Kenta Maeda coming back now from this tricep strain? It certainly doesn't seem to be the pitcher he was before Tommy John surgery, and he's 35 years old now. What do you think?
Well, I think having the tenacity and the resiliency to come back from some kind of setback or injury, it's always been a hallmark of a champion and of being the best at what you can be. Whether it was Ringo coming back from his tonsillectomy or Paul coming back from his motorcycle moped accident where he lost his front teeth before the recording of the video for Paperback Writer and Rain, and or whether it was John and Yoko crashing in their car up in Scotland in 1969. You always got to be able to come back and show up after you've recuperated. So I think that's just another example of another Beatles influence on Major League Baseball. I would like to think, though, that there's Marcus Stroman you mentioned. He's about the same height as Eric Burden from the Animals and Daniel Snyder of the Washington football team. I wonder if there was a horse race where all three would be jockeys. I wonder how that would influence the National League Central pennant.
I wonder that myself. 4 for 10, you say. I didn't realize Marcus Stroman was that short. When's the last time there's been a pitcher in the Major League Baseball that's been that short before Marcus Stroman?
Well, I think Eddie Goodell, what do you want to call it, the World War II phenom
Ah,
for the
you went there. Good
Chicago
old
White
Eddie
Sox.
Goodell.
Yeah, he I think he threw some batting practice, and then that they threw him into a bucket of batting donuts. That was the closest that anyone under 5 feet tall ever pitched.
He was a hard guy to strike out, that Eddie Goodell.
Yeah, he was a ringer. That's what they called him, a ringer. And then Kennesaw Mountain Landis, who I think was about 6'16" in stone and about 45 metric tons. I think he wrote down an edict and he said that no more of that.
Amazing. And speaking of Eddie Goodell, I don't think anyone's ever going to break his on base percentage record. And
No,
let's see.
they won't break that. They broke a lot of Beatle records in 1966 when we toured, especially in the southern United States. They broke the records. They burned the records. They threw the records on stage. They even threw fireworks on stage at the Memphis mid Coliseum, where Andy Kaufman later had his battle with Jerry Lawler. And obviously, everyone thought that there was gunfire erupting, and the concert was almost halted. But it turned out it was just some shenanigans from some birds. And we told them, well, you can come back and take care of your grievances there, ladies.
Yes, well, you know what they say. It's all fun and games until, well, you know the rest. And all right, here we go now. It's time for listener mail. Yes, that's right, listener mail here at the Ringo Klecko Sports Report. We keep receiving all of these piles and piles of letters. Many of them come via snail mail. Those are hard to sift through. The ones that come to us by email, wink, wink, smile, smile, those are the ones that we get around to reading on the show first. So remember to send in your letters to our program director, Sonny Calzone. You can email Sonny at sonnycalzone@gmail.com. Just remember to include Ringo Klecko Sports Report in the subject line of your email. And then, of course, in your email itself, go ahead and write us your question, your comment, your praise, your criticism, your wish list, whatever it might be, so that we can open that up here on the show and react to it for all of the fans out there. Well, the first letter we've got here, Ringo Klecko, it comes all the way from Gus Cooper of Sarasota, Florida. And Gus was kind enough to write in. American astronaut Alan Shepard played golf on the moon in 1971. Did any of the golf balls he hit actually achieve escape velocity? Well, Ringo Klecko, that's what Gus wants to know. Would you like to answer Gus's question for him, or shall I?
Well, I think the golf ball that achieved their speed velocity on the moon, 1971, courtesy of Colonel Alan Shepard. Yeah, I think that had something to do with John's release of the Imagine album, and obviously that was in competition with the Ram album from Paul and Ringo. He released "Don't Come Easy," which obviously Georgia had a hand in writing and producing. So I think that was definitely influenced the putter there of Mr. Shepard on the moon, and I think that definitely is indicative of everything related to that question.
Well, I certainly admire the kaleidoscopic logic that you have going on there, Ringo Klecko. And Gus Cooper, thank you for writing in. I'm sure that answers your question.
I
He
hope he
answered it much
I
better than I could have.
I hope he signed his scorecard on the moon. Otherwise, he'd be disqualified.
Well, that's true. Although I don't know that it was competitive, with that there was even any officiating whatsoever. I thought it was just hijinks. But yes, I do hope, now that you mention it, that he completed that scorecard. And we've got one more letter here to take a look at from today's listener mailbag, and this one is a good one. This one comes from, oh, there's no name for this. It just says Curious in Connecticut. Okay. Curious in Connecticut wants to know, NFL home teams are supposed to provide referees with 36 brand new footballs every game. But what happens if they fail to do so? What if they only provide 35? Ringo Klecko?
Well, I think what you need to do is you need to take the referee back into the referee's room, and I think you need to throw them into a closet and say you're not coming out of there till you produce the 36 football. I mean, a 36 is not only a multiple of 3; it's a multiple of 12. It's a multiple of 6. There's a very kind of the Maharishi always talked about the 36 footballs when he was talking about that the sound of no sound is the pure sound of the National Football League. Pete Rozelle back in 1961 when he's elected commissioner at the age of 33, he said, "Look, man, if we can't get 36 footballs in the hand of the referee, then and this band playing in Hamburg, they're never going to get out of the Bambino, never going to get out of the Indra. It's a 35th only football. That's what's keeping them down. That's why Derry and the seniors getting top billing. Even Roy Storm and his Hurricanes, they're living it up, getting all the best birds. And what we need to do is get the 36 footballs because it's all part of the cosmic unconsciousness. And I think that Paul Tagliabue, he carried on that tradition. And it's only under Roger Goodell that things are falling apart, like things did when the Beatles got together in 1973 to sign and the contract, the paperwork dissolving the Beatles partnership, and that was the end of everything.
Well, how about that? Well, curious in Connecticut, there's your answer. And once again, Ringo Klecko answered a letter better than I possibly ever could have. And well, that
Hello,
concludes.
Bridgeport.
Oh, well, thank you very much. And that concludes the listener mail segment that we are now moving into some big NBA news. What's happening in the NBA? Well, let's talk about what just happened in the NBA. How about that? The NBA draft just happened this week. Now, according to CBSSports.com, there are some NBA draft winners and losers. And of course, they want to talk about how the San Antonio Spurs had picked Victor Wembanyama and how the Charlotte Hornets decided to pass on Scoot Henderson, who it now appears is going to be playing some basketball with the Portland Trailblazers. Anyway, CBSSports.com reports that the 2023 NBA draft is officially complete, and while the opening selection has basically been guaranteed for the past month, there were still plenty of interesting storylines to chew on. After weeks of debate, the Charlotte Hornets settled on Brandon Miller at number 2 overall. The Portland Trailblazers weighed trade possibilities, but ultimately decided to stay put at number 3 without shaking up their current roster. Amin and Osar Thompson made NBA history by becoming the first set of twins to be selected in the top 5 of the same draft when they were selected by the Rockets and the Pistons, respectively. But now the draft is officially in the books, and after months of speculation, we finally know how all 58 picks shook out. So, with tonight's results in mind, who won and lost the 2023 NBA draft? Here are a couple of picks in each lane. Winners, San Antonio Spurs. What did you expect? They just drafted arguably the best prospect to reach the NBA since LeBron James 20 years ago. There might not have been much suspense involved for the Spurs, but landing Victor Wembanyama is still the single biggest victory any team enjoyed on Thursday. His presence changes everything for a franchise that has missed the playoffs for 4 years in a row now. Let's see. A loser. Charlotte Hornets. Scoot Henderson has been the number 2 prospect in this class dating as far back as rankings were meaningfully tracked. The reporting at the time suggested that pretty much every team that tried to move up to the top 3 in this class, most notably including the New Orleans Pelicans, were doing so with Scoot Henderson in mind. There is no such thing as consensus where drafts are concerned, but Henderson was as close a prospect is going to get to being the consensus number 2 in this draft class. Yet when the Hornets handed in their card on Thursday, it was Brandon Miller's name they submitted and not Henderson's. Oh well. Now, who was another winner? It was the Portland Trailblazers. Charlotte's loss was Portland's gain on Thursday, just as he would have been in Charlotte. Miller could have easily fit onto a Blazers team that is currently loaded with guards. After leading Alabama to one of its best seasons in recent memory, it wouldn't have been hard to imagine Miller helping Damian Lillard back into the playoffs sooner rather than later. But opportunities to draft true franchise-altering talents are so rare in the NBA that they should be cherished, even when the fit isn't clean. Loser, the Thompson twins. Yes, as a family, tonight was historic for the Thompson twins. They just became the first set of twins to be selected in the top 5, or the top 10 for that matter, of the same NBA draft. And getting picked back to back will surely be something that they remember forever. In the grand scheme of things, every prospect that was picked tonight was a winner. But the Thompson twins are prospects best suited to succeed under very specific circumstances. Both of them struggle as jump shooters, so in a perfect world they would land on teams in a position to let them handle the ball as they develop. But that's not what happened. Osar Thompson is joining a Pistons team that already has 2 recent top draft picks in the backcourt. They have Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey, and Ivey, like Thompson, is still developing as a shooter. Amen Thompson's situation could be even more difficult to adjust to. Not only do the Houston Rockets have 2 high-usage young guards in Jalen Green and Kevin Porter Jr., but they're expected to pursue veteran guards in free agency also, with James Harden reportedly at the top of their list. Oh boy. Anyway, what do you make of all these winners and losers in this year's NBA draft there, Ringo Klecko?
Well, mate, this smacks me as something that's really got to be watched by the commissioner, Adam Silver, over there at the NBA office in New York. You've got two identical twins playing. They're going to start for their respective teams, but when these teams play each other, I think there's a real danger that at halftime they're going to exchange jerseys and they're going to play for each other's teams. This is a fundamental risk to the sanctity and the integrity and the credibility of the National Basketball Association. I think that it's something that really needs to be watched. And I think ever since Mike McCartney, he would come into shows, and when the Beatles were touring around, and girls would come up to him and say, "What's your name?" And he would say, "I'm McCartney." And he would be going home with all the birds just because they didn't know any better. They'll take any McCartney. But these guys, they actually look like completely like each other. Well, that's cats and dogs living together, and I can see that this is going to affect all of the betting lines in Vegas and all around the world. I think that that is something that is broken here on the Ringo Klecko Sports Report. These two players, these identical twin brothers, they are going to switch jerseys at some point when they play each other. It could even be in the 7th game of the NBA Finals. What are we going to do? I think we got to get Alan Shepard back from the moon so we can sort this out.
Wow. Just imagine Detroit Pistons squaring off against the Houston Rockets in the NBA playoffs, and then, well, in the NBA Finals, even better. Wow. I better get a bet into my bookie and play those long odds. Well, that is some fascinating stuff. Keep an eye on those Thompson twins. You never know what sort of tomfoolery they'll be getting up to.
Oh, that's a
And
good one, mate.
that is a good one. Moving on to the NHL. Yes, National Hockey League. NHL games are finished because the Stanley Cup finals are finished, and a new champion has been crowned. That's right. FullPressHockey.com just posted a report the other day that said Vegas Golden Knights crowned Stanley Cup champions. Yes, indeed. And they did it behind a dominating performance in Game 5. The Vegas Golden Knights, Stanley Cup champions for the first time in franchise history. Not that it's been all that long of a franchise history, but still. Vegas fulfills the prophecy set forth by their owner, defeating the Florida Panthers in Game 5 of the Stanley Cup Final by a score of 9-3 behind a hat trick from Captain Mark Stone. That's right, a hat trick from Captain Mark Stone. Now, Jonathan Marchessault was awarded the Conn Smythe Trophy. Marchessault had 13 goals, tied with Leon Draisaitl of Edmonton for the most in the Stanley Cup playoff. Congratulations to Jonathan. He also finished with 25 points in the playoffs, one behind Jack Eichel, who recorded 26 points with 3 assists in Game 5. Now, it also says here that Adin Hill had to be sharp and early, really all night, as he continued to make remarkable saves, including a remarkable glove save on Anthony Duclair in the 3rd period. It was the 5th or 6th great save he had to make. It was something he had done all series long. Big tip of the cap to Adin Hill. The Golden Knights started slowly as the Panthers took advantage of the nerves. You could feel the energy in the building as head coach Bruce Cassidy started the Golden Misfits line of Jonathan Marchessault, Riley Smith, William Karlsson, Shea Theodore, and Braden McNabb. Florida also used some of the momentum from the end of Game 4 Not to mention the 2 days off hurt Vegas again. Thus, Hill had to be on point, and he was ready to go. Just as he did in games 1 and 4, Hill made series-changing saves, I should say. First on, Hill robbed Anton Lundell on a breakaway to keep the game scoreless, and then Alexander Barkov on the power play. These saves allowed Vegas to settle in and find their game. Well, onward it went. And of course, we've got a new champion. Now it remains to be seen if they will repeat next season as NHL champions. Ringo Klecko, how do you like the chances for the Las Vegas Golden Knights to repeat and win the Stanley Cup again next year?
I like them a lot. I think a lot could be said about the fact that this was the first time that Lord Stanley's Cup was awarded since the passing of Queen Elizabeth II. Lord Stanley obviously was a subject of the crown back in George V's days, and riding on the railroad, the Canadian Royal Railroad system through Banff into Alberta and so forth. He was really good at developing schemes of what to do on the power play, circling back and forth, rotating of the defensemen, and we spell that with a C, obviously, and really get that up and over and through the 5 hole. And I think that that's exactly what the Golden Knights did over the Florida Panthers this year. They know they're going to be doing it again. It's kind of going to be like the Green Bay Packers sweep. You know it's coming, but you can't stop it. So I would say that that's a very favorable bet. I think they're going to be short odds, but I think ultimately you're going to win. And if you do that with a parlay with what we talked about with the Thompson twins, then you'll really be in good stead at the Bunny Ranch.
And what do you think about that final score of that game 5? It was 9-3. What the heck was going on there, Ringo Klecko?
Well, 25 or 6-4 as the song goes, all adds up to 9-3. Obviously, John 9, that was the number of his numerology all through his life. And Ringo, he always went with the O, which in the terminology is a 0. I know that's not an integer, but he's still kicking around at 83 years old. Looks great. And you got to love it. Rock and roll, everybody. Ringo Klecko.
That's right, Ringo Klecko. Thank you very much for joining us. And thank you all out there, all of you fans of the Ringo Klecko Sports Report. We appreciate you tuning in, and we appreciate you sending us all of this wonderful listener mail. Keep it coming. On behalf of Ringo Klecko and myself, this is Timothy Connolly saying we'll see you next time. That'll be episode 5 in 2 weeks. Ta-ta.